No one was able to watch the test day on Wednesday last week or follow it because we had 2024 tyres. No one knew when someone ran 2025 tyres, which is just fucking stupid because we should have all gone there just with 2025 tyres and spent the $1,200 a set, but done it at a different time so we didn't have to spend $400 a day per person to go to a Wednesday test prior to a race weekend and stay there for 9 days. It's silly. Take it back to a 3-day weekend and spend the rest of the money on fucking tyres.
Oh no! He's in the fence! They're both in the fence! They're all in the fence! Oh, unbelievable!
I have just had an absolute mare, which our live listeners have been exposed to.
A what?
Do you know what I've just done? A nightmare. Do you know what I've just done?
Can't believe he's called a nightmare a mare. I've never heard.
Do you know what I've just done?
What?
We just nailed. The intro was fantastic, guys. So
I wasn't recording.
There wasn't recording.
Oh, we get to do it again, guys. So
Fucking
hold
hell.
on. You get to hear all that crap all again.
You know what's bad? Now I'm going to have one sit there that gets a little bit warm, but I have to drink the first one fast. But that is a disaster. Fuck's sake.
I don't know what's worse, the fact you didn't click record or that you called it a mare, but anyway.
Oh, whatever. Get me another drink. I need a sound check. I'm sorry, guys. You have to sit here. I had one job. I turned all the cameras on, everything. I knew that was going to happen, though. I felt so prepared today as well.
It's because I was late. I rattled you.
Fuck. Sound check.
Sound check. Cheers, mate.
Take two.
Couple.
For anyone listening to this pod right now, I've just had a nightmare. I forgot to hit record on the first take of this bad boy, so it was only a couple of minutes in, but we're back, mate. Episode, I think it's 34. We're trying to pump these out this year. You set a big standard with a goal of 100.
Yep.
So I think we've pulled our finger out so far. We're banging these out. So I'm pretty stoked to be rolling through these. But we're live streaming tonight as well on Patreon. So that's something we've really enjoyed. The Patreon members tonight got a insight into a royal fuck up from myself, didn't hit record. So they got an extra couple of minutes, which no one will ever see again because any mistake I make, of course, I bury.
Correct.
Before we go into the podcast, we got a big one tonight. We're going to talk about some engine. There's a lot of talk around the engine and who's going to be the builder for the engines in Supercars. And we're also debriefing the Supercars from the Sydney Motorsport Park weekend.
Yeah.
But we can't be here every week without our Patreon members and also our sponsors, East Coast Car Rentals, AHU15 for that 15% discount. And you don't need to be traveling to a supercar event to use it either. Some people may not know that. If you're traveling for a holiday and you want to hire a car, use AHU15 at East Coast Car Rentals for a cheeky little discount. Quadlock, new partner of ours too.
Get on them.
Very chuffed to have those guys on board. It's they've been a supporter of mine, like on and off. They helped us create the content last year in New Zealand. They're a big supporter as well of of my race team. They sponsored me personally last year, so great to have them on board the podcast. And of course, Trico as well. Trico Products is a big supporter of the pod. And actually, if I get this out fast enough, Saturday we have a
big event.
Yeah, we're doing an appearance with those guys at their headquarters. So the details are on their website, on their Instagram, Facebook.
Head to Trico's socials. You see a beautiful picture of my ugly mug and Scotty's there. And come on down.
Yeah, come say good day. We're there with Cooper Murray as well. I think we're judging some cars.
Yep.
So that'll be a good day. Lancaster Motor Group, a big fan of their stuff. And of course, they look after me as well with a car and support the pod, support you. So I think if you can, look up their website. It's going to be in the description of the video. And they've even got 4x4 accessories. So servicing, parts, anything you need, check those guys out. But for all the partners, of course, I'll put the link in the description and you can go have a look at them. But before we rip into the engine thing, one thing that I've added in here I'd love to give a shout out to as well is Ryan Story. So Dr. Ryan Story was a great guest of ours on the podcast and he had a bit of a tough time the last few weeks.
Your ex-boss too. You know him really well.
He is, yeah. And I sent him a text when I heard about it, but I did want to give you a shout out, Ryan. Not sure if you're listening to the pod or if you even listened to it, maybe just his own episode. But
I'll give you that.
But it's great. I saw that he is out of hospital finally, but mate, he had a tough run. He put in his caption, ambulance ride, resuscitations, intensive care, pneumonia, plural effusion. No idea what that means. Doesn't sound good. Lung abscess, sepsis, hypoxia, dehydration, PICC lines, IVs, antibiotics, transfusions, surgeries, CTs, x-rays, and everything in between. So he's had a tough time. Hope you're feeling better, Ryan, and it is great to hear that you're out of hospital and on the mend.
Yeah, we'll see you at the track soon, hopefully, buddy. Sydney engines.
You going into it?
Yeah, you want to dive straight in the engines, mate?
Yeah, we won't stick too long on this. I just thought it was interesting because I saw that in the debrief, in the, what do they call it? Press conference with the drivers and team managers they had on Sunday night. They asked Ryan Walkinshaw his thoughts about, T8 announced or made like a premature announcement, I guess, that KRE was going to be their engine builder, switching to Ford as well. And one of the comments he made is that he was pretty adamant about it. He believes having one engine builder across the two manufacturers, being Ford and Chev, GM, should not be the case. And he said that one of the reasons for it is that we shouldn't have one engine supply doing two different brands. It goes against the philosophy of what the sport is built upon. I had a few thoughts on it, and I guess it's not really about my opinion because everyone's going to have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
But Ryan's super intelligent. He's very smart.
Yeah, I'd hate to try and argue with Ryan.
Oh, I definitely wouldn't. And in here as well, if we say anything that he thinks is wrong,
He'll let us know. That's fine.
well, I'd like you to, come on the pod. He said last year that he would come on this year. So I don't know if that was just politely telling me to go away.
Yeah.
Or if he genuinely would come on the podcast. But yeah, if we get anything here that you don't agree with, we'd love to have you come on. But I've tried to.
We'd have to upgrade our bar, mate. If Ryan, he likes expensive red wines, I reckon. I don't know if we've got anything in the fridge you'd drink.
Oh, he's going to have to come down to our level. There's some vitamin Bs in the fridge.
There is.
There's plenty of good stuff in there for him. Reckless Brewing as well. Actually, thanks, guys. They came in this morning and dropped us off a bunch of new products. So
yeah, the one day I can't drink, there's a shitload of good-looking tinnies in the fridge. I'll make up for it.
But at the moment, the big thing is the Chev engine. One of the big things is that Kenny Mack is somewhat subsidising the cost of the build of those because the products aren't cheap. But given he's got the economy of scale with his Chev program in the sprint cars as well, he builds a lot of engines there. He's also just got literally the size of the business is big enough that he doesn't have to be trying to survive based on just supercars alone.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that for DJR, their primary income for that engine shop is going to be the supercar program. So they have to charge a little bit more because, they've got to survive. So even though the Ford parts are cheaper to build and service the engines, the Ford program actually does cost more per annum than what the Chev program does.
Right.
So I think that, one problem we have here is if KRE was to lose 888 as well, they are losing 888 as a GM engine deal. They will potentially lose others as well. They're going to have to drive the price up to sustain the engine program with the Chev teams that they are left with. And so you're going to have teams, say if BJR sticks with Chev, it sounds like the engine program per car could be close to 60 grand a year more, right, which with a team with 4 cars, that hurts. That's really tough. So I think that it's important that we consider those things. Now, the parity is always a talking point. Yeah. So, you talk about, okay, there's one point. If KRE loses AAA along with others, the engine program will have to become more expensive for others. So I think that the Chev teams have already got an uphill battle because they're losing a powerhouse and there's not really another team to pick it up that's anywhere near where they are.
Yeah.
So then the other thing is they're going to have to then go and pay more. And I know that 888 support the engine program a lot with development. So who's going to be helping there?
Yep.
But I think that the Ford teams, their price could be cheaper potentially if Kenny Mack was to have both. Again, economy of scale would allow him to subsidise both programs and make the pricing the same. So the Chev teams and the Ford teams would have the same.
They should be the same, shouldn't they, really?
Yeah, they should be. The hard thing is, the Ford should actually be cheaper.
Yeah.
So realistically, the Ford should be cheaper. I think it's somewhere around the 40 grand is the ballpark per year. Yeah. It costs more for a Ford engine program.
But not that they are, but in an ideal situation, you wouldn't want teams picking manufacturers because it's cheaper to run one versus the other. They should be similar.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But what the reason why it's important is, you got a 4-car team. You're looking at if BJR stay with Chev, it's could be over 200 grand more per annum for their team's budget, which is massive.
It's huge, yeah.
And then the other one is if you had one supplier up until now, you wouldn't have had all this parity issues with the engines.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have had to go spend $1 million. And the reason we talk about the budget and the price and everything is because we all know how many more rounds we'd love to have. And you throw $1 million back in the kitty.
So, yeah. So
it's going to help do more racing. That's why the price of the engines and everything is important. And then I think that Ryan is from what I've gathered talking to everyone, it sounds like his agenda would be the Ford at the moment is unreliable. Like we saw, Cam Waters had I think it was a harmonic balancer fail on the ride day the Monday after. Last year, obviously, we know all the issues they had, but they got a pretty solid, pretty good engine. It's just, you need to improve on a few things there, I think, with the reliability. But if you don't allow KRE to do both and ensure both Chev and Ford have a really reliable, good package, it gives him an advantage. So, of course, you're going to say, I don't want things to change because Toyota's coming in and it gives them, I think, the best advantage to have a bit of power over the top of Ford and GM. I think it's going to hurt the GM teams probably the most, which is funny because I think they're the ones that are saying, no, it should be just one engine supplier for one manufacturer. And the funny thing is, I think everyone's really worried about T8, and they think that it seems like by trying to, it's like most people, I think some of the rules that Supercars bring in, I feel like is to try and be ahead of Triple Eight, thinking that everything they're doing is for their own best interest. So they're trying to
stop crashing.
Is my gut feel. It's like the rule they passed last week where a Triple Eight driver can't go and drive a customer car's
that was silly
car. One of the worst decisions I think ever. Like I was on the receiving end of that one year where it helped me in LDM. Small team, and Jamie came and drove my car. Gave us a bunch of feedback that I would never as a rookie have been able to learn, or know, and he helped fix my car. He didn't gain anything from that. Like Wingcup's still going to go on. He would have won his 7 championships without driving my shit box down the road. No, but it helped me a lot.
Yeah. If they're doing that to try and stop big teams getting a leg up, it's actually the reverse. It's stopping little teams to be like getting a leg up.
Yeah.
You say it's got nothing. A big team or a top team or top driver is not going to learn anything from driving someone else's car and giving 5 laps worth of feedback.
Yeah, but I think it's something that
helps the small teams greatly.
Definitely. And I think some people maybe think by getting rid of that, it's going to hurt Triple Eight, which it actually doesn't. It helps the smaller guy. That's why we have the customer program, because they don't have the resources to match them, and it helps them. But there's a whole number of things. I think the big one for every fan is we all want parity, right? And that's been a talking point up and down the lane for the last couple of years, and in the comment section as well, is like the Ford engine versus the Chev engine. That would eliminate all of this to have one engine builder across the two. But you still, as a purist, it's still Ford components and a Chev component. So like the heart of it is still the same. It's just the only way to ensure that when your car crosses the line with a Ford engine, it's because of that product, is to have the same engine builder. Like if you have the same guy building both, a fan could actually say, well, a Ford engine won that because the guy building them is the same.
Yeah,
so the only difference, the only real change is the product itself. If that's what you want to believe anyway, makes the difference, because I don't. I think there's a lot more. But to say that the philosophy of the sport is built upon something else now, it's if that's what you hang your hat on, the sport will die because it's no longer red versus blue. But also we have controlled chassis, and we've got a Chev team currently building the chassis for what was the factory DJR, like factory Ford team with DJR. So you can't say anymore that the components on the car are what what the sport's built on, because it's just not the case anymore.
No, correct. So is it the spirit of competition that he's arguing is?
I think it's just saying that what the sport is built on is not just the Ford versus the red versus blue, but it's, I guess, the engineering prowess maybe that goes with it and finding an advantage, because that is what sport's built on. But I think there's still enough variables. We've got a controlled chassis, but we still see teams do a better job than others with it. We've still got difference in aero, which I think is a big factor like we're seeing at the moment. If not for T8, I think they're the only Chev team in the top 5 of the team's championship now. The rest are Fords. So we saw that last year. So it still shows that like there is competitive differences even with the same product. A Chev team can still be beaten by another Chev team. We saw Erebus beat Triple Eight with the same equipment. They just did a better job. So there's still engineering prowess in there. There's still variables that like Erebus were able to get something more out of the same product as what T8 had when they won the championship. So I just don't agree that the sport has been built on different engine builders. There's enough variables in it, I think, that keep it interesting.
Yeah, it would stop. It would definitely stop some background chatter and all the pissing and moaning when things aren't equal.
Yeah,
like it all came from the one shot.
Exactly. Yeah, and
whether they want the people talking because it's talking about the sport or not, I don't know. But it would be. I think it would make sense if they all, and when Toyota comes, if all 3 came out of the same shop, I just would think that would make a lot of sense.
If all 3 did, 100%, I think would make more sense. And I've heard that there's someone associated with Supercars involved in the Toyota program, which I dread to think if that's actually the case, because we're talking about like, and this is the thing, Ryan's very smart. He's going to think about what he says. And as a Ford and a Chev fan, I can tell you your best way of having both of those competitive with engines is to have them out of the same shop. Doesn't matter which side you're on, whether you're a Ford or a Chev, I really believe having them out of the same place is the best way forward. And I think even then for the teams, financially it is smarter, it makes more sense. KRE at the moment as well, that if you think he's not already helping Ford, Like, this isn't an engine builder that is sabotaging Fords. He's already helping them. He's helped them with a lot of problems throughout the process. They work together.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've just seen a lot of the comments and they're very divisive, I guess, because we're Ford fans and then we're Chev fans. I'm from a Ford family. I drive Chev, but I think that the best way to take it to Toyota would be that those two come out of the same shop. I think you could improve the reliability and everything. You'd have finally the prices similar. You'd have that, what do you call it? What's it called? Power,
Economy of scale.
Economy of scale. Yeah, I just think that that's the way forward. But who knows? There's got to be a reason, though, why some people like Ryan is going to be against it. But I'm not saying what he's saying is just an agenda, but anyone that thinks that every team doesn't have their own interest at heart is kidding himself.
Yep.
So, of course, Ryan's saying it for one reason. I'm sure there's elements as well equally that Jamie and T8 are going to be fighting for what they want. But all I can say is, like, after the weekend when I spoke to a whole number of people, it sounds like it's going to create problems for the Chev teams. And that's a shame because I think they're already in a weakened spot now with what's happened. And then the Ford teams as well, I think their best chance is to combine and go to KRE. That is just my gut feel. But it'll be interesting to see what the comments say now that...
Yeah, fire them in. Tell us what you think. Send us a message on socials. Those are in the chat now. Give us your thoughts on it. Should it come out of the same shop? Should all three come out of the same shop? Should they not?
The big one is I'd love to know if it come out of the same shop, all the AVL testing stuff wouldn't have been necessary, you wouldn't think.
No, they got their engine diagram, they'd just be back
the
to
same.
them. Yeah.
So, and also you don't then have one engine builder. He doesn't care whether it's a Chev or a Ford, I imagine. He's going to want his engine to win, but if he's building both, he's just going to build both as best he possibly can.
It's his product.
Because if a Ford wins and the Chev doesn't, Kenny's not going to be high-fiving.
Well, it puts a lot of pressure on KRE, because that's who we're talking about, making sure that everything is perfect. Because otherwise, if there's discrepancies, he's not going to keep that contract.
Yeah.
So by doing that, you're actually almost guaranteeing quality control across
100%.
the different brands.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, I reckon, is you've got quality control, which then flows onto the parity. Like, you end up with the same across both. And then it comes back to the drivers. I can see in here, Thomas Jarrett has actually said he's mentioned in here about the quality of the drivers in Ford at the moment. It's arguable, arguably they might have better drivers, but if you have the same grunt, you don't have that constant thing hanging over you that, like, Cam's talked about for the last 2 or 3 years with the new car, saying that parity hasn't been there and he hasn't been able to compete. You don't have that anymore.
No, it's true.
It's like...
It would stop a lot of the background bullshit that goes on.
It would. And the price, we've talked about it with, because I've seen a couple of comments as well, like, why does the price really matter to fans? Well, the money that we've spent on parity, particularly just with the engines, and also solving some of the problems that actually were on the Ford engine, hasn't been cheap. So that is passed on to the fans. We've seen a calendar which is 13 events. I know we're doing more racing, but really it doesn't actually feel like it because we're just banging in like sprint races and things, and we've eliminated testing. But with all the costs, like when we talk about format and the cost of the engines and things like that, could eventually see more racing is what I would hope. If we can save elsewhere by being smart, hopefully that would mean, it's like the test day. No one was able to watch the test day on Wednesday last week or follow it because we had 2024 tyres. No one knew when someone ran 2025 tyres, which is just fucking stupid because we should have all gone there just with 2025 tyres and spent the $1,200 a set, but done it at a different time so we didn't have to spend $400 a day per person to go to a Wednesday test prior to a race weekend and stay there for 9 days. Like, it's silly. Like, spend 9 days of accommodation, take it back to a 3-day weekend and spend the rest of the money on fucking tyres.
Yeah.
Don't run around on 2024 shit. Give us the same, and then a fan can tune in on TV. So the cost is always passed on. There is reason behind it, is my take. But that's why we talk about format. It's why we talk about the cost, and smaller teams as well. I'm saying the smaller teams would have a harder time. It's not going to hurt T8.
Well,
it's just not. It's like getting rid of the testing.
Yeah. If the overall costs come down, it means smaller teams will be able to compete more because it's not as far out of reach as what it may be at the moment. So if they can bring it all down, your smaller resource teams will be able to get better results.
Yeah,
which makes better competition, which then goes back to the fans again because they watch better racing. Speaking of better racing, thoughts on the weekend? What did you think of the racing?
I loved it. I thought it was really good. I mean, particularly Saturday night. I think everyone would be a fan of that. And I really think that the fans won that night. Like that was
Saturday night was
unbelievable.
I was sitting at home watching it, and I was chatting to a mate on Monday about the racing across the weekend. And I said, I can't remember the last time I sat on the couch and actually fist pumped watching a motor race. Like, because I was just like, I was getting that, I was on the edge of the seat stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit. Like when Cam got back by Brock, like, not that I'm biased to either of the guys, but you just want to see good racing and something different. And I was like, fuck, that was a show.
It was like, yeah. And I think that the racing, they let them play on, sort it out on track. And I was really impressed with the way Cam did the redress. Like,
yeah, when he bumped you around into 4.
And it takes me to the commentators. I am so sick of hearing about how hard it is to see out of these cars.
Yeah.
It is not. Like, it's just not. You drive the cars, if they can drive them in the fucking dark, they can drive them in the daytime and see. You know what I mean? On the commentary, they talk that many times, and I've had that many questions from fans going, oh, the car's really that hard to see out of.
So that hard to see, they'd put a GT3 reverse camera like every other race car in the world on it, and it'd be done.
100%. Like the first time I drove it, yes. It's like moving your seat in a road car and your B-pillars in a different spot. It feels a bit odd. You drive it for a day, and it's like you don't think about the visibility anymore. And the fact that Cam in the dark, like that, I just segue to that because if he can do that in the dark, there's no reason for an Aaron Love to crash leaving pit lane in the daylight. You know what I mean? It's that was so impressive. And I know that it wasn't great for, like, Will would have been burnt by that. He would have been he would have been pissed. But then even the way, and he was cheeky, he tried to stay on the outside of Corporate Hill.
Yeah.
So that he could still, he was like, if I give the lead back, maybe not the whole position, but then Brock, good on him, like fed him a wheel, pushed him off because Brock knew as well. He's like, fuck this guy, staying on the outside. But that whole lap I thought was unreal. I mean, the redress I think was cool. They let him do it because you want Cam to go down the inside and have a go. But I loved it, mate. I thought it was unreal.
At the end of the day, it was exactly what the sport needed, was some solid entertainment.
Yeah.
And again, the product's always been amazing. The racing's always been, we've touched on it before, it's probably the best motor racing in the world as far as door-to-door racing.
That proved it.
That stuff, like, without a doubt.
Yep.
You know, I do feel a little bit, if we're going to talk about that, if I was Brock, I'd have the shits on because it was technically a bump and run. I know Cam waited, but Brock still had to reset the throttle. And if he didn't hit him, he was in the last corner.
Oh, the last corner, yeah.
Like, if he didn't hit him, Brock had that race home and host. He was done.
Yeah.
He was back to the throttle, gone. Like, never going to catch him.
And there was
so I feel if I was Brock, I'd have the shits on.
Yeah.
Yep. Good on Beto and Supercars for letting it play on and let it play out as it did because it created amazing TV. And as you know, people are now really excited about the championship. I think I know, like, I'm pumped to watch round 2 now to see what happens. Are the Red Bulls going to feed him a wheel? Like, what's going to happen? So it's created some nice drama around it. But from Brock's point of view, if that was me, I'd have the shits on.
Yeah, and he did, and rightly so. Like, I'm literally just going from a fan's perspective, and I thought it was awesome. Providing, like you say, the next time the roles are reversed, they allow it to play on because you are right. Like, I saw some people, saying, and since doing the pod, I keep an eye on the comments a lot more, just on any sort of post from Speed Cafe or Supercars, just to see what the consensus is between the fans. And a lot of people were like saying that is not a bump and run, but almost by definition it was. Like, the second last corner was where the bump and run was. It actually wasn't the last corner. It was the bump and run when he did the switchback that he touched up the back of Brock, which allowed him then an overlap. Now, the only reason there was no penalty apparently was because Brock went towards the apex of the second last corner, which even that as a race, I don't agree with that. He's allowed to go across, but the only reason there was an overlap was because he bumped him in the second last corner. But
look, Cam played it. He put it right in that grey area where there was a good argument from both sides, and they've gone, you know what, it's created an awesome race. Like, we're leaving it. So it was really smart by Cam. Yeah, I just think if I was in Brock's position, I would have done the exact same thing that Brock did. Cut him back down, tried to chop his nose.
Yep.
At the end of the day, he's hit him, and it's made Brock get out of the throttle, and that's what's given him the ability to then side draft up enough. Otherwise it was done. So, but as you said, it's now they've got to leave it like that for the year now. And it's a real big grey area because every incident is completely different. Every scenario is completely different. And now they've opened up this grey, like, it's going to cause some real talking points throughout the year.
It will, yeah. And I think even going into the next driver's briefing, it would be, my recommendation to Supercars would be, at driver's briefing, bring up some of the incidents and talk through them with the drivers, because I think there's some confusion. When I chatted to the drivers, like, a lot of them are like, don't really know why that one got away. You know what I mean? Like, they sort of are like, we'd like to know where is the limit then? Because as a driver, like, you know, we need to know where the white line is and when we cross it. And if you don't know where the white line is and you're just driving like, I think this should be fine if I escort this guy, but then all of a sudden that's too much. Like, how do you know that? So I think a conversation with Beardo, it would be awesome, I think, just to go, guys, this is why this was okay.
Yeah. You need explanations. You need to understand.
But then equally go, if it was like this, that would be no good.
Yeah.
You know, because you've got to know.
They've got to understand where they can and can't go. But, yeah, I say, good on Beardo for doing what he did. I think it's going to be great. I mean, I think he's caused himself a few late nights for the rest of the year because there'll be a lot of Saturdays and Friday nights and shit at the track where he won't be getting out there very early. He'll miss a lot of dinners. But, you know, that shows that they're dedicated to trying to make it a good show rather than just pissing off early and going to the restaurant and stuff.
100%.
So good on you, man. I think it was great.
I actually text Beardo too. I did because I'm probably I would have to be one of like the worst drivers, I reckon, for arguing. You know, when
just the worst human.
Oh, mate, I'm fucking terrible. I am like, I am that one eye. You know, there is only my way or the highway. So Beardo probably. I apologize, mate. I've always been that guy that will sit in a thing and debate until.
What'd you text him? You didn't spray him, did you?
No, I actually texted him and said, "Great job." All I said was, "Good job." I thought it was
Did he respond?
Yeah, he said, "Thanks, mate." And I actually was funny because the last text I'd said we were arguing with each other. But it's just funny, you know, like that's it as a driver. You're always going to think you're in the right, even when you're in the wrong.
Yeah.
But and it's the same as a fan. Like it's so hard to, like I saw some of the comments again on the Cooper. You could almost, with Cooper and Brock, you'd almost see who goes for or who hates Red Bull. It's like literally if you didn't see sense, you hate Red Bull or vice versa. And it's the same as a driver. Like I've never thought.
Fans are going to have bias.
Yeah.
To either a manufacturer, a driver, or a team.
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
And when you walk out of the room, you can look at it differently and go, okay, you reflect on that and hopefully learn from it. But in the room, you want to debate it. But I think the Beardo did a good job because, I also think, though, if they made a call and did penalise anyone, especially if it was Cam, if they penalised him for anything at the end of that last race, I think the fans would have it would have been a hard one to justify because you'd want to be confident that the penalty was deserved. Because even if it's a grey area, it's a very hard one because you've got to come out then and say, no, what he did was wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it was that clear cut, you know, and I know that.
The penalty's got to fit the crime. And if you did penalise him, it probably wouldn't have fitted the crime.
Yeah. And I know, like, Brock might not, you know, he's not going to like that. And everyone, but I think that I'm like, sorry, mate, I don't know if it was that clean cut that you could hand a penalty out. And then.
It was a lucky one that when Brock got turned at 4, he got going. Like.
Yeah.
It was the best.
That one was good.
It was the best scenario for everyone, really. Like, they all finished where they, apart from maybe you could argue, obviously, Brock and Cam could have been reversed. But other than that, they all three cars that got mixed into it ended up on the podium. They bagged good points.
Yeah.
Put on amazing entertainment TV. So.
And then the redress, I know that, like, Will would not have been happy. But at the end of the day, I think he was 5 seconds behind before that incident. So sometimes you go, well, it gave me a shot to actually be closer at the end of the race to have a crack. Really, before that, it was never going to be on anyway. So I don't know. As a punter, I thought the whole thing was unreal.
What do you think of, you actually got to drive the car on Monday, mate. Did you drive on the new tyre? What do you think? What did you hear about the tyre over the weekend? What was everyone saying? To
be honest, it doesn't sound like the tyre really, like, made a big difference, I don't think. I think that it sounds similar. Like, even watching the race, I could still see that even when Cam got to Brock, it looked like it heated up pretty quickly. Like, he caught him so fast, and once he got within that second, it did seem to overheat as well. But all I'd say is, like, Sydney Motorsport Park, I know there's some people saying that, you know, the tyre made great racing, but it's always been the case that, like, if you could put 5 laps on someone, you're going to come at them hard at the end. You know what I mean? And I think that was still the same, which is Sydney Motorsport Park brings that. High deg tracks, we've seen it at Barbagallo.
I was going to say Perth, we saw it with Lounsey.
Any place like that, I think it just breeds good racing. So that's why it's a shame we don't see many fans out there because it's still one of the coolest. Like that, the racing was amazing. It was unfortunate, actually, Cam was as fast as he was because if no one could get in front of him, they couldn't stop him.
Like, it was unbelievable, wasn't it?
It was ridiculous, mate. He was so fast.
Absolute clean sweep and just never even looked like – I reckon he was almost – I know it wasn't, but he could have been cruising. Like, he just was perfect all weekend, every session.
Yep.
You know, it was amazing and good on them because
we missed out, though, as fans, I reckon, with some of the battles in the mid-pack. Because you're right, Cam, like, he walked away and we saw the leaders a lot. But mid-pack, there were people doing alternate strategies and coming through the field. And that was a bit disappointing. I didn't feel like I could see any of it. I was watching the timing as opposed to watching the TV because the TV still showed the same 4 people.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And there was good racing up and down the field similar to what we saw at the front. Like when we saw Cam coming back at Brock, equally there was people in the mid-pack doing the exact same thing.
Usually mid-pack and further back is the most entertaining racing because they're just throwing haymakers for 20th.
Exactly. But yeah, overall, fantastic racing. Credit to Beardo, the whole team. Of course, you know, if you're a T8 fan, you probably wouldn't agree with the Saturday night, but I equally reckon almost every T8 fan would still go, fuck, what a race. Like I had goosebumps at the end in the pit of T8.
If you're a motorsport fan, you're all for it.
Exactly. The fuel churns as well.
One went for a trip down the road, I saw.
I saw that. And I think
it was an MSR car.
I actually chatted to the guy doing the fuel in T8's garage, and he said that the only thing I think that seems a concern with those is the, whatever you call it, the churn itself is plastic and it goes into a metal coupling. So you got a plastic thread going into a metal thread, I think it is.
Stripping, is it?
And it's it twists. So that's what happened, like the weight of the churn. He said it happened once in practice to him, and luckily he got out. But I think that's what's happened is as they've gone to pull out, it's actually twisted and made it awkward. They couldn't get it out.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, a lot of safety conversations came up about it, and that probably sounds like the only thing I reckon that might be a small concern, but I'm sure we'll get on top of that.
That is probably why NASCAR use metal jugs still.
Yeah, it could very well be.
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense. Because you got like 40 kilos of fluid swishing around. It's going to, you know, especially with the weight up high into a small funnel.
Yeah, because they're 25 litres, aren't they? So then plus the churn, it probably is close to 40 kilos, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and then some of the comments we had coming across Patreon as well was that we love being able to see the fuel, actually see it going.
I thought it was cool it being transparent.
Yeah, I think that.
Because it surprised me how many dropped with looked like it got fuck all juice on. And I was like, they've obviously got enough in there. But like some of them, it just didn't look like it went down. And some drained it. Like I reckon there was definitely, it'd be interesting to know if any of the teams know, like, did people do things with the jugs to make them, because some look like they drained really quickly and others it looked like whether it wasn't in properly, just was a little bit slower. So
it also looked like if you had, which would make sense, like if you had the full jug, the weight, because some of them didn't put all the fuel in, which would make sense because you know the last bit's always slow to come out. So
gravity feed,
if you had, exactly, fill it and then let it drain out to what you need. But it was interesting. I think it was actually really cool.
Adds to the theatre.
It did.
I know a lot of people, I saw some comments saying this is stupid, people are going to get hurt and stuff. I don't really think people are going to get hurt. I don't think it's any, you know, I just think it adds to the theatre. If I was a fuel person and I had to, you know, on the churn weekends, I would feel like I'm contributing more.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see any bad thing. I thought it was a cool thing.
Yeah, and I spoke to a few of the fuelers and they weren't concerned. So that's the main thing, right?
Yeah, if they were going, this is shit, this is going to hurt me or something, you'd be like, fine, no good. But
exactly. So, but it was cool that they were transparent. I actually, that was something I didn't think about, but once I saw the comment, I kept an eye on it. I did think that was very cool. And it also gave you a bit of an idea of how much fuel they put in. The fuel strategy, I guess we get to Sunday, but there's a few questions I had with the rain. Like in Sunday, I wish it came earlier but I don't know how much fuel the likes of Bryce Full would put in. But the fuel itself was definitely a value add, I think, for all the fans being able to see it. But I don't know on telecast if it was clear how much fuel had gone in for. That's one thing I don't know because I didn't watch it. I was there. So did you see? Did they talk about that? Who had how much fuel? Or
I don't know if they,
because the minimum drop was gone, which I think is positive.
I just noticed myself just watching halftime, watching out from what's actually being said on the TV. I'm just watching my own stuff. But I noticed, and I don't know, like, is there, you might know, mate, or you might not, but is there a minimum starting fuel for the cars? Because I just noticed one team would always come in and drop the 25 at their stops, and then some were just doing like half tank stuff. And I thought, maybe they're starting lighter, and that's why they're needing to take the hot. But just something I thought of while I was watching. I just noticed one team would always drop the full 25 in, and I'm like, maybe they're starting lighter.
But I guess that could come back to, remember when we spoke to Tom, I actually asked him, like, will people put all the fuel in one stop or split it across the two? I think the majority split it across the two just for time, to not lose time. They went tyres pretty much was the tyres seemed like the limiting factor, and then they
I only saw one,
just put in what they could.
Maybe the one car, I noticed that car all the time doing the whole, and I just thought, is that because they're trying to start the car lighter at the start of the race?
Yeah, I actually don't know. Yeah.
So anyway, I was just saying I thought.
Good question. All right, so the standouts in the weekend, we'll start with Friday. One interesting thing was that Team 18 got 1-2 in first practice. They didn't totally go missing after that because Anton had some good races and came through.
Yep.
But then on the flip side, Dave had good qualifyings and then struggled in the races. So it was interesting to see those guys. And it just looked like they didn't find the time on the green tyre. Like they ran a green in practice, I'm assuming, and did a 30.0, but they only did 29.8 in qualifying.
Yeah.
And the fastest, which is wild, was a 28.6 with Cam Waters. Like he just all weekend, I don't know, 2.5 tenths. Like when you look at the spread across the field, it was so close except for Cam, really. Like I think even at one point,
he was always 2 tenths up.
Yeah, and I think at one point, if Will was a tenth slower, he said he was going to be like 18th or 19th from being in the 10. So we saw almost Tassie times. Like the spread across the field was so close. So for Cam to have that dominance was impressive, and he never showed it until qualifying.
Yep.
In practice, he was 17th, and then first in all 3 qualies, first in all 3 races, and the fastest lap in every race. 315 points. It does not get much better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. As I say, that whole car and him looked like they were on a different level.
Yeah.
It looked a little bit obviously like Brody at Bathurst last year.
Yep.
You know, like it just looked like they were always in control and always just had a couple of tenths on everyone.
Yeah.
They needed to go a bit harder, they could.
Yep.
Someone caught them in the mirror. Yep, they'd just pull another tenth.
The only, I guess, thing with Tickford, it looked like their pit stops. I know that the first one's really hard to judge because Will, not the first one, but the one on Saturday, when they lost the lead to Brock, obviously Will came in and blocked him. So you literally have to discount that whole pit stop.
Yeah.
But their pit stop on Sunday wasn't great either. Like I do have the times here somewhere. I'll find those while we're chatting. But it looked like, T8, I've got the whole pit lane times here, but T8 were like the 2 fastest cars in every single race. And I think that's probably the only thing left for Tickford to improve on. It looks like maybe their pit stop times weren't
we sort
as good as they thought they'd be.
Sort of said that, I think, when a couple of pods ago, when we were talking about the differences, it's just that consistency.
Yeah.
And, a lot of it is obviously pit stops.
Yep.
So hard to gain. You're never going to gain a second or 2 on track, but it's very, very easy to lose a second or 2 in the lane. So.
Exactly right. So, on Friday, so the pit lane time, for instance, for car 1 was 41.1, and for car 6 it's 43.6. So he's losing a couple of seconds there. Obviously, Saturday's a very hard one to, so I won't bother looking at that because he did again lose a few seconds there compared to the other guys. But again, car 1 on Sunday, 39.8 in the lane, and car 6, which is Cam, was 41.2. So.
Is that dependent on how much fuel they're putting in though?
So that's actually, pit stop 1, 39.9 for car 1, 41.2 for car 6. So again, it's 1.3. And then pit stop 2, 39.8 for car 1, 41.2 for car 6. So the pit stops, it seems like they've gone same fuel and really probably just gone for tyres.
So they're just going, when the tyre's done, they're unplugging.
Exactly. But the pit stops themselves are separated by the same amount in both. So they're losing only, a second and a half, but it all matters. And I think that's the stuff when they are close that maybe puts them on the back foot if T8 were to deliver. Like in the first pit stop, so on Saturday, the first pit stop for car 6 was 44.9 seconds. For car 88 was 41.6.
Yeah, 3 seconds.
So it's a big gap. And then you go to pit stop 2 on Saturday, 42.1 for car 6 and 39.3 for car 88.
So they're
always losing a couple of seconds.
Second or 2 up the road, which I say over a race, come to the end of the race, if you've lost across 2 pit stops 4 or 5 seconds, like you got no chance of winning.
No chance. And that's the thing. I think if Cam didn't have the speed he had, so the gap I think saved him a little bit. If they were like nose to tail and they pit, it's very difficult to then go the next lap or even go the lap early because 2 seconds that starts to open up an overcut or an undercut. You could almost do either. You just go 1 lap either side.
Yeah. And
those cars are always going to come out ahead. So I did want to look at the times because I was curious. After the weekend, I got someone to send me all the times for pit stops, which was awesome. So I got all the lane times. Because I was like, fuck, they did everything so well. At the end of a weekend, I get so used to debriefing. I'm like, what's the one thing they could improve on? Because everything they did seemed great. And it does look like maybe the lane time they could improve on, which I'm sure they will. There would have been challenges for everyone with that new fuel churn.
And that's all the stuff the engineers will be going through Monday, Tuesday after an event. They'd look at all that stuff and going, right,
Definitely.
This is where we're strong, this is where we need to improve. So fingers crossed they do improve that over the year because I think it would be a really exciting fight if it's Cam and the Red Bulls and whoever else can challenge. Like if we've got 4 or 5 actually going toe-to-toe, the whole season would be amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And then
nice split of cars too. Like I think it's good seeing the Ford versus Chev battle. Like I don't just want to see Chevs podium and stuff like that. You want to see a mix. So.
It is a shame this year, look, after being through the weekend, to not have Brody and the Will days at Erebus, because you've lost that next Chev team. Like, there could have been a really cool 4-way battle for the teams. I think would have, and I sort of, you always appreciate things after the fact, but that year, you had Tickford, Walkinshaw, 888, Erebus battling it out. That's pretty cool. Whereas this year, I feel like at the moment, Woody, and we'll get to it, has a fair bit of pressure on him, but the gap between him and Chaz versus, say, a Randall and Waters is big at the moment. So it really seems like at the moment, if Woody can't close the gap to Chaz, it's going to be between two teams.
Yeah.
So we've gone from having 4 just a couple of years ago in 2 Chevs, 2 Ford teams.
Yeah, 2 or 4.
So, yeah, I don't know. So I guess I look back and appreciate that a bit more, but it's a bit of a shame. But, next year we see Toyota join and everything changing with Ford and Holden.
I mean,
so
it is only round 1.
No, but I mean, the gap really between 3rd and 4th, that's what I'm saying, is only 3 teams.
Yeah.
Really, I don't see, Kai Allen, here's my first note on here for Friday, P22 in practice, then qualified 10th, and then dropped to P19 in the race.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, like, Tickford, Walkinshaw and 888 have a great lineup. I think it's hard for the 4th team to come in, and really it's only 4th and 5th is another Ford team. So, there's not, it's literally one Chev team and then the rest Ford teams they're battling. So there's not that thing for the fans to have. I know red versus blue, we say is dead, but I think there's still enough Chev fans out there to be going, fuck, I'd love to see another Chev team in the top 5 battling it out.
Yep. Anything else notable from Friday,
BJR cars, 2 in the top 10, which I thought was a really good effort. P9 and P7 for Andre and Bryce, which was good. Obviously, we covered off Cam Smoke and everyone. Chaz qualified 8th, then P2, which I thought was really good. And with that, though, that's where Woody out-qualified him. P7, Chaz was P8.
Yep.
But, Woody finished P11 and Chaz moved forward to P2. I mean, we know how good Chaz is, and particularly his racecraft. Like, his opening laps are so good. He seems to be in the fight straight away. So
passing's really good.
It's hard. And I don't want to say too much about Woody because it's like, it's just hard. You got such a quick teammate. You can clearly do the lap. This year's going to be the pressure is on.
He's up against, as you say, his benchmark, his teammate. Yep. He hasn't got an easy route there.
Definitely not.
So, his green tyre pace is obviously really impressive. He can match Chaz or better him.
Yep.
That racecraft stuff is obviously Chaz been doing it a long time. I've got no doubt Woody will pick it up, but
it's just how long do you have though? You know? Like you think
I get that
at the end of the rookie season, there's been guys in the past that are pretty well on top of it. But also I thought that this was interesting that race 1 showed that Randall clearly had the same car as Cam. They both set the lap record in the race.
Yep.
Cam was only 600ths quicker than Randall for fastest lap. So Cam did a 30.6 in the race and a 1 minute 30.6. Randall did a 1 minute 30.7.
Yep.
So clearly on Friday, they were very close. And even in qualifying, they were very close. We've got, in the race, Randall's finished 3rd with Waters on first. But after that, I felt like Randall kind of went MIA and it got worse, from Saturday and Sunday. It really got worse for him. And I mean, I love their content. I'm a huge fan. I actually think they actually won the media award as well.
Yeah. So did you see the one where he was washing the car?
But that's what I'm getting to though. Like at some point, I mean, it's great to be the number 2. Like if you want to be the perfect number 2, then, settle into that and you'll probably have a really long career. But I don't think he's that guy. I think he would want to win. But, to see him in every pole position photo celebrating Cam, he's literally cleaning his car in content while Cam's sitting in a chair watching. Even when Cam won at the weekend, like on the final race, I saw the content and it's funny. It's good content. I love that, they're showing personality. But Cam won the whole weekend, dominated, and then you've got Randall filming him in the content saying he's the Senna de Silva, like the Ayrton Senna of supercars. And I'm like, dude, you finished 11th. Your teammate won one race by 17 seconds. I think it's a hard one. I don't think there's many drivers that would be that happy for someone else's success. And I think that could be, if they lose, they could win the team's championship this year. If he can match or get closer to Cam, I mean, when there's 17 seconds across first and second, he should be in there.
Yeah.
And they could win.
Should have been a 1-2.
It should have been 1-2. And I think that, and that's why I put in there that Friday he was so close and then it just went MIA. So, I mean, is it a number 2 situation?
Yeah,
the content looks like it.
Yeah.
He's sort of the heel to Cam.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how that you think that looks like it. It's like, I don't know Tickford well enough, and I can't really remember off the top of my head, but, are they a team that puts a lot of focus into one and the second car's maybe not? I mean, I don't.
But I mean, they went back to from 4 to 2
to
for
2
that,
to try and help
for that exact reason.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the case because Randall's had plenty of podiums lately and he's as fast on his day.
But that's the thing. Like, he's kind of not at the moment. Like, by the end of the weekend, he was 7/10 slower in the race than.
Well, the start of the weekend he was there.
That's what I mean. Like, and then to be.
So is that engine? Like, yeah, I'm just throwing. What is it? Is it him? Is it engineer? Like, do they not tune the car as well as car 6 over the weekend? Like,
well, I think I'm not saying that maybe the car. Like, I think the car is there because it's there. At the start. All I'd say is like, maybe don't be so stoked being the number 2.
Yeah, you're talking about a mindset.
I'm saying a mindset. Like, start to be pissed off to be number 2 to your teammate. Like,
headbutt him.
Like, I've witnessed Brock and Will, and they are like Will on the test day. I'm like, dude, just relax. It's Wednesday, like they're so competitive with each other, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't see that. It's like, yeah, I don't know, I just don't see it, and I don't think being a number 2 is a very flattering position to be in as a driver, and the content is literally, it's like Randall's his.
You'd have to get the shits at some point.
At some point, dude, I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Why is my teammate winning pole, fastest lap, and winning every. And to say, like, Friday, that's why I noted that. They had the same car. He did the same times, and he just fell away and seemed happier at the end of the weekend than at the start. Saturday, mate, what do we...
This is Saturday part 2, obviously, because we were just talking about Saturday.
Well, yeah, Friday. I finished Friday. Oh, sorry, I've put in there.
That's all right.
It's Saturday, and Sunday is equally called Sunday on my notes there as well, mate. But Saturday, it was rinse and repeat for car 6. But the results, we obviously talked about the race and how cool that was. Woody, I think, had an issue in the start of the race. I think it was Friday night. Bad start and finished P20. So yeah, he was fast in qualifying again. The battle between Cam and Brock, goes down, I think, in history as one of the coolest finishes in Supercars that I've seen.
Yeah.
Cam Hill, honourable shout out, made the shootout.
Yes, that was good. They didn't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they didn't really have great races, though, did they? Where did he end up in the race?
It's in there, but Cam Hill, I thought, was, in terms of qualifying, finished. He qualified ahead of
finished
Percat.
13th, so just missed out on 10.
And it's it's called for Percat at the end of the weekend to have a car switch. So he's going into the car that Cameron Crick was in across the weekend. So there must be, it's an undiagnosed problem, but obviously they're feeling like they're not. Sydney's a strong track for MSR typically.
They did that last year. They found a crack somewhere too halfway through the year, didn't they, and swapped chassis or something?
I think you're right, actually. Yeah,
it's Percat again. It's hard on the gear. Cam was, had his moments where he shined. We've talked about him before. I think I rate him really highly. So I'm looking forward to hopefully them continuing their charge this year and trying to get a little bit closer to the front. I do want to give a shout to Cam Crick too, because he's a wild card, and the results might not have looked amazing, but I think, like, I looked at some of the times and stuff, most of the races he was matching or within a bee's dick of Percat and Hill.
Yep.
So his race pace was, was good, so he can do it. Obviously, it's just a bit of learning how to race in main game. I'm sure it's far different to Super 2 or anything else.
I think that's a really good point. And they probably, you got to go a bit deeper, don't you, to see that, like, Percat had a tough weekend to the point where they're changing chassis, but he was right there with him in the races, like you say. So when you look at MSR not being...
And I sort of looked at Hill too, just to sort of verify, and he was, I think one of the races was only 10th off Hill, or half a 10th off Hill's race pace. I mean, so he's got the pace there, and I just thought that was, for a track that's probably, even though it's his home track, he does a lot of laps at Sydney. I don't really believe in home tracks, though. But, it's probably a hard place to go because of the tyre deck, because you've got to manage that tyre. So I think...
you're right. He did a really good job, actually. And we got to see him in a few battles too. They did show him a bit on TV, I thought.
Yeah, which was good. Someone said he spun out. I saw it in the comments before. Someone said he spun out on the in-lap. I didn't see that, but if he did, good on you, mate.
Oh, was that in the wet? I saw someone put up online. It was like, who was the guy that spun on the last lap?
Might have been camshaft, just having a bit of a drift sesh.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, actually good shout out there, mate. Well done, Cricky. And it'll be interesting to see if Percat does bounce back, because obviously the Grand Prix last year, which is round 2 again this year, he won. So, if he comes back and wins, I mean, could it be the chassis? Who knows? Sunday, mate. Or are we done with Saturday? I think
that's good, mate.
I think it's about it. And then Sunday was unfortunate that no one managed to jump Cam in this one because it sort of looked like it was like, oh, okay, he's got the lead, he just drove away. So, but the rain, I wish the rain came like 10 laps earlier. I think their last lap was still 1:54, and the wet tyre, they were saying, is only 5 to 7 seconds or 6 seconds off the pace of a slick. So
they were at the crossover, but as you say, there wasn't enough laps to come in. And I'm with you. If it had happened to force people on wets, we would have got a cool race.
Yeah.
It was just, as you say, it's a shame out. We're probably 5-6 laps out the window.
Yeah, and even like I know commentary was talking about it coming for a lot of the race, but even my the engineers there were saying in T8's garage were like, the rain's coming, it's coming, and they thought it was going to be a lot earlier than it arrived. So yeah, broadcasts weren't bullshitting. Like everyone I think thought it was going to hit.
What it was,
but unfortunately, it was like 6 laps to go. I think it started to rain. So
what it was too was it had a really light sprinkle before it got hard enough to actually wet the track.
Yeah.
And because they had so much temp and everything, like even though it didn't just downpour, it sort of sprinkled for 3 laps and then it got reasonably heavy. But if it had just gone bang downpour, they probably would have been shit.
Yeah.
Let's box. So.
Well, Dado said after, he goes, we kind of didn't even realise that, oh, fuck, it's actually wet enough that we should have gone to slicks. Like he sort of said it just like seemed to happen. Like you say, drizzled and then it's like, oh, it's heavy. And then they look up at the times and they go, oh.
They go, well, there's 4 laps left.
No, they were saying like, oh, we should have pitted. Like no one kind of thought, I think, maybe like you say, there was 4 laps left or whatever, and they were thinking, but it actually were,
because on the
they were 20 seconds a lap slower.
Yeah,
in the end, and like that, it wouldn't have taken very long to get down the lane. Like 2 laps, 3 laps, they would have been on them again. So
on the telecast, I think the first cut laps where it was like you could see the wipers on stuff, but not heavy. Yeah, Cam was still rolling around doing like 33s or high 32s. Yeah. So they're like, oh well, And then, as you say, they then were going slow in the end. And it was actually, I enjoyed watching Brock and Brody's little battle because they used a lot of the aerial footage, which was great because you could see them really hunting for lines to try and find grip, which I thought was just really nice to see. And it's just interesting when you see different approaches.
Yeah.
And Brody was definitely like, he was moving around a lot trying to find, and then you could see Brock going, oh, he's caught me there and he went this. So the next lap, Brock would like, I actually enjoyed watching
it. It was really good racecraft, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was really fun just to watch that. And it was cool that the telecast were actually using the drone or chopper footage, whatever it was. That was cool to watch, I thought. And we needed a few more laps because I reckon that would have brewed into a decent little battle too.
Definitely. I mean, he still got Brock at the end. He passed him. And I think that was cool to see Brody put on, like, he just displayed again how good Brody is.
Just car control.
But it was interesting because I thought that when it started to drizzle, it looked like Brock was going to get Chaz. And then it's almost like it just pulled a parachute and went backwards, and then Brody caught him. That was
the only downside to that. As you say, when it started, the 3 of them were kind of there. I thought, this will be a belter. And then, Brock was obviously pressuring Brody was obviously pressuring Brock. And then Chaz just obviously got shit together and he sort of pulled a bit of a gap. I thought, bugger. I thought the same thing because if it was the 3 of them,
a 3-way battle,
it would have been really good. But Chaz obviously really good in the wet too, so he just found the line that worked for him and he sort of pulled a few car lengths. And
watching Bryce forward during the race, I think because he was just hanging out, I assume, for the rain.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how much fuel he put in or whatever it was, but he pitted like 7 to go and 2 laps later it was pissing down. So
I thought they were going to go west and just go, fuck it. Who cares?
And at that point you would think, okay, you're like last now, I guess, on the he come back through, I think, a bit at the end on the fresh tyre for a few laps until it rained. But you go, okay, we've gone that long. We might as well just wait until the rain. Like, you sacrificed so much of the race anyway. Yeah. But maybe there was more to it. Like, maybe they didn't quite have the fuel or something to get – they needed 2 more laps. And I actually was starting to think, shit, if it does rain, like, he's going to be in a good position here. But it unfortunately didn't come to fruition for him and they had to pit. So I'd like to know why that was. I would assume it was you wouldn't bottle it that close to if you've waited that long. But he unfortunately pitted 2 laps before it rained and didn't get to capitalise on it.
Yeah, Phil would have been Phil Keed would have been doing the rain dance, no doubt, in there hoping it worked because it would have been a great strategy if it worked.
He would have come through for a podium, I'd say, like at the end to be 20 seconds a lap quicker than the other guys, which it would have been.
Yeah.
The Cooper incident, mate. What are your thoughts on that? So that was obviously in the last race as well. And I got some details in there.
With Brock, yeah. Interesting. I mean, it's one of those things, we've said it before, you see it sometimes when rookies come in and they're fighting so hard,
Yep.
I think and you talked about it with your incident with Shane at Adelaide all those years ago. And I just thought of it, I thought when Brock was there initially through, 11 or 10? The right-hander?
The right-hander, yeah.
Yeah. he probably should have just rolled off, let him go tuck back in. He would have lost, 2/10 that lap maybe?
Yeah.
Instead, he ended up getting binned, turned around, the thing cut itself. He had to fire it back up. Like, he lost so much time out of it.
And even to say, like, I think he said he was going to let him go on the front straight. You actually got gifted less time loss by doing it before the second last corner because he was already alongside you. On the front straight, you would have had to back off completely to let him go past.
I actually think, this is just my personal opinion, I think it was caused just Cooper didn't realise he was there. I think I just think it was a little bit of lack of awareness, or he didn't realise he was that much faster and he was going to get to his door by that point.
Well, he pulled that lap, he'd taken 1.4 seconds out of Cooper.
So I think that's what kind of caused it. And then, by the time they've made contact initially, Cooper's out on the shit and he's never going to stop the thing.
Yep.
So that's what's caused him then to run out, and then he's come back on and he's probably half got the shits and then turned down.
Yeah.
And that's what's caused it in my mind. So
I think the penalty, a few people were like, I don't know why he got a penalty. I think it's a dangerous re-entry. It's almost like, I don't know that he realised they were the lead, not the leaders at the time, but they're effectively third and fourth they were in the race at that point in time. Yeah. And I think he's just tried to get back on track as soon as possible and get to the apex, and just obviously denied him. But one thing that come up a lot was fans were like, well, you're not obliged to actually get out of the way when you're on the same, even though he was out of sequence. He was effectively like 40 seconds behind them on track after the stops. And I get he may have been waiting for the rain. That's fine. But when you're out of sync like that, there is no rule. Yes, you're on the same lap. So there's no rule you have to just give way. But you're on a fuck tire. Like, I've been there, and the only reason I say this is because I've done it so many times, and I would say to Cooper, just learn from that, because you got to pick your battles to win the war. Had you not been spun or done what, if that didn't happen and it did rain and you stayed out, you probably would have come through and maybe got your first podium and looked like a superstar. But instead, you've cost yourself that by trying to fight when it wasn't your fight, if that makes any sense. And it's just a learning lesson. And I say it because I've done it too many times. My rookie season, I drove like a fucking prick half the time. And I look back and I regret some of that. And I think that, you try and pass some of your learned experience on. And I know that 2014 was when I squeezed Shane. He was on the fresh tire. I was out of sequence. I would have finished fifth as the race unfolded. I'd have finished fifth. And I've had a pole at Adelaide since, but I've never had a good result there. That would have been my best result in my home race ever since. So this could be one that Cooper looks back at. And if he was waiting for the rain and could have made it, he's going to regret that big time. But I'd say that, you're not obliged to. But when a car catches you 1.5 seconds and they've just pitted and you're stretching your tyres, once he got alongside you, just roll out of it, join on the back of him, and just go, because you're going to lose 2/10 and you keep going. You're never going to hold him back.
I just think it was caused literally because he didn't know, like, he didn't, lack of awareness, whatever it was, he didn't. Yeah. Otherwise, you would have. Otherwise, 100%. Most people would have gone, oh, fuck, he's on me here. It's easy just to hang out here and let him go around. But so that's what I think caused it. And then once you're in there and you've done it, then, you flip through the excuse book but as you say, I think that's what, looking at it, all the vision, I think that's what caused it. Yeah. He just didn't realise how fast he was and how far up the inside he was.
And I did hear as well, because obviously while I'm there, I ask around questions and things, I found out that I don't believe he was going to get penalised for it because it was self-penalising. Like,
because
I heard that
got binned,
I heard that Beto was like, well, he took himself out at the end of the day and he spun and it caught on fire and the thing sat there for a while. But what happened was, I think the officials went, no, this is 4 crashes from 5 starts. Right. If you don't include, and one of them, I think he was laps down when he turned Frosty in Adelaide. Do you remember that?
Yes,
4 laps down or multiple laps down, and he turned Frosty really bad. Yeah. And then the one at Barbagallo as well in Super 2 where that kid rolled.
Oh, he turned Cam on his head. Yeah.
And this is it's not a beat up. It's like, mate, just like, I think the officials are anti Cooper at the moment because I don't think there was any accountability on the Perth one. I think what's happened in Adelaide isn't a good look.
If this was a one-off incident, I'm with Beto. I would have just been, mate, you've binned yourself.
Yeah.
Self-penalised. I would have said the same thing as what obviously Craig was thinking.
And I think that's sorry to cut you off. I think you're right. Like, you would, if it was one, you'd go probably self-penalising. But I think they're now trying to, mate, like, you can make different decisions in these moments. And unfortunately, I think it's, both races in Adelaide crashed, and then
I'm sure
Davo Saturday night, then Brock for Sunday. Yeah, I think the only race he had clean, which I went back and looked, was on this Friday night. Yeah. So it's like, man, and I think he only walked away with 40 points from the weekend or something. So you just reflect on these and go, and I had weekends where I scored probably less than 40. I mean, I'd crashed, but I look back now and I'm like, okay, they're just moments you learn from. That's all.
Yeah. I'm sure in their debrief, I mean, the team at Eris pretty experienced, and I know he'll get a fair, they'll tune him up on that stuff. But hopefully, because, he's obviously got some speed, but just needs to work that stuff out.
Yeah, I think he was 7th fastest in the race on Sunday. Like I went back through the times. So he's definitely fast enough.
Definitely can turn a lap, just needs to keep it out of trouble.
Qualifying obviously is tough. Like when you go from Super 2 to main game, the qualifying, and I think it's got better the last 2 years. Like the laps people are doing are they're so impressive. And like you look at it on the weekend, Will was 18th, I think, before his last lap. Like he'd already ran greens, he's 18th and just got a lap that got him 10th. And I think that's a competitive field.
Yeah,
like
that showed like he was, he had a bit of a shit weekend. I mean, his racing was good, but every qualifying's just like, fuck, he's not having it easy.
Felt like it was like this the whole week, you know, like I just can't believe that. I actually can't believe they got the results they did on that side because I think in the races he must have been quick, but like I look at quali and I'm like, how the fuck did he make it in the shootout? Like I think he missed top 10 on Friday or Saturday, qualified 11th.
Yeah, he missed it,
that's what I mean, qualifying. That's why I say for Coops, Kai Allen, like for Kai Allen on the Friday night to make the top 10 was awesome.
Actually, I thought for speed and stuff and I thought he did a great job. He obviously had a bit of shit go down in the races because he had a couple of he dropped back a bit throughout the races. But, yeah, I actually thought Kai did a great job.
Yeah, it's just a big step.
Big step. Match Matty, Payne for speed, like 1 lap speed, which is obviously a good thing. So...
Well, I think on the first day, he struggled after that. Not to be a downer on it, but like I think Matty Payne was pretty fast. So like Matty Payne was in the shootout, I think, all 3 days.
Yeah, he kept trucking.
And he was kind of 4th in the races or something like that, or 5th around there. Yeah, he qualified 3rd on Friday in the shootout again Sunday.
Sunday, Matty Payne was 6th in the race,
Yeah, and in the shootout, he hovered like between 3rd and 5th in qualifying.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously Kai Allen, I think, dropped down to, 20th or something like that.
Yeah.
But it is a big step up. The guys have done so many green tyre runs. Yeah. You're doing 3 a weekend now. So experience will come. But he showed on the Friday quality that he's got the speed.
I thought Sunday, Jack LeBrock in the qualifying session did a great job to put it P4. That was like on the death knock, and he just jumped a heap of guys and put it in P4. That was a great job. And then he used his greens to do it. So he then went like shit in the top 10 shootout because he didn't have greens. But fair enough, no one's going to do a lap around that joint on used bags. But yeah, I thought that was worth a shout out, which you've put in the notes, because that was a great job from those guys. And I'm pretty sure that's the car that I think Barry Ryan's engineering himself too.
He is,
so, he obviously hasn't lost his touch for spanner in car. So that was pretty cool to see.
Pressure's on. We talked about engineering battles. The pressure's on Wayno because Wayne Mackey, I think, is on Coopers. I may be wrong, but I think that's who stepped up. And Baz is.
Yeah, Baz has gone.
He's what, 3 up? I think Jack.
He just said, throw us the perch spanner. I'll show you how to set up a car. So anyway,
Baz has got the leaderboard. He's leading the engineer battle with that team. But yeah, I did put in there that, Jack, big shout out because he qualified 8th and finished 10th. And it was not, it was just a close weekend. So I don't think, I think
his
that
lap
was pretty good.
Was really good. So that was awesome.
Talk about qualifying shootout though. Like you talk top 10s. Don't you still think we need green tyres for everyone that makes the shootout and they hand them back?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, 100%.
Like poor Jack.
Everyone should be on it because he could have potentially bettered his, learnt something from that run and then gone out and challenged for a top 3 in qual.
Yep. And sometimes he's probably done a better job. Like maybe his car wasn't quite as good at, like you say Cam, right? It's going to be easy for Cam on that weekend to save tyres because he doesn't need to just go out and keep having a go, whereas the slower cars, not slower, but ones that just are going to break in have to use every set of tyres.
Yeah, they work
just keep going to make the perfect lap to just sneak in. And then you go up against Cam because Scotty Mack used to do this all the time. He'd use 1 set of tyres in quali and then have fucking 2 up his sleeve compared to everyone else.
Yeah.
And it just the deficit from the fast guys got more. But yeah, it would have been cool to see Jack go into the shootout.
Dunlop should definitely do a deal. Every car that makes the shootout gets 4 green tyres, and as you said, they have to roll them back.
Yeah.
They can't keep them.
Yeah, it's not like an advantage for the weekend, but it means that we get at home, see everyone have a crack.
Get cut in half once the quali's done. They get demounted and shredded and job done.
Yeah, bloody oath. What else we got there, mate? We go into the Drivers' Championship? Because, the results. We actually didn't talk about the results, but the first podium was a Ford lockout, so I'll just quickly read out the top 3. Yep. Cam Waters, Chaz Mostert, Thomas Randall. And then the second race was Cam Waters, Brock Feeney, Will Brown, and Chaz Mostert again right on the back of that podium in 4th.
Yep.
Good shout out for Matty Payne there too, actually 5th. And then the final race of the weekend, Will got up on Brock, but he still was P2 to Cam Waters. He brained him again, and Chaz made onto the podium. with Brody passing Brock in the wet at the end and Brock finishing 5th. So I thought that was really cool, like you said, to watch Brody come through on the wet and see
It's a good race.
See the difference in the lines. But I guess maybe going to the Drivers' Championship first, because I just had a couple notes there that
Yes, he had Reynolds and Stanaway, 61 points and 42. So disappointing. I mean, Richie had a shock. He blew the shit out of his motor.
Yeah. I actually found out there were mechanical issues even in Sunday on qualifying. So this is I put that in there with the point with the and I think I saw Reynolds. I watched his video at the end of the weekend, and he said like there's things that happen that we don't need to go into. So I'm assuming there's issues there as well. So all I'd say is like, let's give Stanaway a bit more breathing space and Reynolds as well, because I know in one of the races I watched Reynolds dropping down the field and I thought something has to be broken because we know how good Reynolds is. And he had a shocker. So 61 points, I don't think reflects 61 and 42 for Richie does not reflect on both of those guys, but it sounds like Richie had a throttle position sensor failure, I think, on qualifying on Sunday, which is why he was last. But I just know what the comment sections are like. You know?
People go,
we don't need to be shitting on anyone because,
look at Courtney. Courtney's 12th.
Well, that was, the big one. I'm like, from poor qualifying, I said,
I'm getting absolutely drilled by your teammate leaving the lane to,
Mate, he finished on that race. I think he finished 11th from last after the crash in qualifying. So, good.
Actually, they did have a reasonable date. Both cars had, because I messaged Blanchard that night going, well, I'm glad you had a decent race after the qualifying mishap.
I think it was 11th and 15th or something.
Yeah, it was considering how it was earlier in the day and early weekend, it was a good result. So
maybe they should be crashing into each other more often in qualifying, start from the back and come through, because I don't think they've passed that many cars or finished 11th and 15th in a while. It was like they were fast.
It was good. I'll just read you through the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. So we've got Cam Waters in first with 315. We've got Will Brown, 255 in second. Chazzy Mozzart, third, 250. So 5 points between second and third. Brock Feeney's 216 in fourth. We've got Matty Payne, fifth with 212. Thomas Randall, sixth with 182. Deepa Squally, seventh. So it's a good opening stanza for him from a points point of view with 179. Brody Kostecki, eighth, 174. Golding, good job by Golding, ninth, 139. Geez, I felt for him when he got his lap in qualifying robbed by getting balked. That would have definitely put him in the 10. That was shit.
We put that up on socials as a bit of a joke, but it's
Heimgartner.
It was gut-wrenching because Golding was on a lap, man. He was on a lap.
He was easily going to go top 4 for the set, which would have put him in 10.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gut-wrenching, isn't it, when that happens?
Because I just get the shits with watching that stuff because you know yourself when you've been, I'm on a good lap, and then there's always something like a slower car pulls out or something goes wrong, and you know that feeling, and it just...
Especially when you're having a hard time. I feel like that always happens, like for Golding. They were on fire on Wednesday, and then you get a fast car, and it's not every weekend. So when you have an opportunity to get a result, that's when something fucking left the field comes in and just kicks you in the dick.
Something silly that shouldn't happen, and that was what happened to him.
That was it. And I did see some people said though, like, oh, where was he going to go once he passed Macaulay? But the onus is on the guys. Like I've been the people. I've been in the people in the last sector. It's your job to get it out of the way.
Yep.
But also once you go through that into that last complex, everyone gets up it. No one should be. Yeah. And for Macca, I just actually don't think he realised he was coming in so fast, and he didn't check.
The
cheeky weave at the end though was bad.
Well, I think he'd seen a flash of colour or something, and just was trying to get out of the way, and then realised that's where he's going. I don't think he was actually. That's what I think happened. And then we got in 10th Andre Heimgartner with 137. So that's the top 10 for the Drivers' Championship.
There we go. Someone's put in here as well in our chat on Patreon which I didn't really think about. Traymond has said that with the green tyres for the top 10 shootout, it actually goes both ways, because if you don't make the shootout but you didn't use your tyres, you've got a green set for the race, which I think it was, I think Will started 11th and had a green set, and I'm sure that would have helped him get to...
Oh, it helps, but track position's so important.
Track position is. But that was one thing, I didn't think about. It does go both ways, mate. You are right.
It's a good shout. Yeah, for sure. But some tracks, especially like in Sydney, would be a track where that would be a gain because it's so hard on tyres.
Yeah.
If you're outside the 10, though, I would think probably you're going to burn the green off the tyre by the time you get anywhere towards the front anyway. But it's not a bad shout at all.
And then we can go into the teams championship because were there any more honourable shout-outs in the drivers? Anyone that has impressed you there?
In the drivers, Courtney, as I said, in 12th, 116 points. Who else we got? Actually, Jackson Evans, 13th. So that's
good. Yes, I mean that's been
second
a
year
tough,
now. So
it's been a tough car as well. Like that car. I mean, 4 cars at BJR. He's bloody. We saw Tickford cut back to 2, and that's a powerhouse.
well, really, he's number 4 car at BJR, and so far he's second in the points. He's ahead of Fullwood and Macaulay.
Yeah, great.
So
That's good on him because Jackson's done a lot in.
I mean, it's not a surprise. Jackson's a great driver. He's done a lot of. I mean, everyone's great drivers that are in the championship, but he has done a lot of racing. So it's nice to see him hopefully find his feet.
Yeah, definitely,
and continue that on. Yeah, really, they're sort of the only ones I think are worth mentioning that are a surprise or that are feel good stories, mate.
Okay, so into the teams, I guess, is important because we do still have that rolling pit lane, which there are no pit stops at the Grand Prix, we know, but it's still such a cool feeling, I imagine.
Bragging rights.
For the team to walk in and know that they're the first in the lane, there's bragging rights with that and there's pride that comes with it. So, Tickford is going to be rolling out as the first car in the lane, which is very cool, I think. And Red Bull are going to have to try and bounce back there, but there's a bit of a gap from it's first and second. And this is what I was saying, where between Chaz and Woody, Chaz, I think that race where they qualified 8th, he just sort of I don't know how he got up as far as he did. But those guys are going to want to bring those 2 cars closer because the battle between first and second, I reckon this year at the way it looks. Yeah. Tickford and Red Bull are going to be very tough. Then you've got, Mobile One Truck Assist, Mobile One Optus Racing. That's a long name.
That's shit.
Penrite, 4th, which is not bad to bring in. They got 2 young guys.
The thing that...
What, you look shocked there. There was something that caught your eye, was
No, I was just reading the mobile trucks and the mobile Optus, and I was wondering why it's just 2 mobile, because it's across both cars, that's all.
Okay.
But I was looking at the Shell V Power Racing, it's DGR, they're going to have the shits, I would think, with running 5th. They've invested heavily. They've got great people there, 2 good drivers, good bunch of people. And to leave Sydney 265 points, so they're nearly 300 points off the lead, 250 points off the lead already sort of thing. Like, they're going to have the shits. I mean, which is... When teams get the shit, sometimes they come out swinging. I think you'll see that with Red Bull at the Grand Prix. They're not going to like being the second garage. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And Shell will definitely not like being number 5. So,
and I guess
that surprises me.
Penrite, I'm sure, wouldn't have been stoked with their weekend, but to come in with Kai Allen as a rookie and then...
Yeah, I think that's,
But I mean, to be ahead of Shell, where you've got Brodie Kostecki and Will Davison, who are 2 very experienced guys now, you would have thought they would have been ahead of Penrite.
You would have had them for... Third or fourth,
I would
is what I would have thought. Yeah. So they're probably a spot or 2 behind where I would have thought they would have been.
Yeah. And
to be honest, with the gap, mate, they could have. Yeah. Anyway, that's surprising.
Yeah, and then you got Team 18, I believe it is, in 6th. So DeWalt and Tradie Energy Racing 6th, 7th R&J Batteries and Middies, which is obviously Andre and Bryce.
Yeah.
Erebus is down in 8th, which I think they were strong there last year. So whether the new tyre threw a bit of a curveball when they didn't quite hit the window.
Well, Jack was fast. I mean, Cooper's a rookie, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Then Premier Racing in 9th, which those guys had a shocker. Like, they just had so many issues. So
fires, engine blow-ups. Yeah.
They didn't. I don't think they knew exactly what the failure was, but speaking of Kenny Mack, he said it could be like a cracked piston or something like that, which until they reach the kilometres, the minimum, you're not allowed to check them. So even if the engine, I thought this was weird. I asked him about this. A couple teams have had engines overheat in the past where they've got the blanking wrong or left blanking in. And even if you can show that you've had a really severe overheating issue, they don't allow you to pull it apart. So it's interesting. And I think they're starting to, so that engine was getting close to its mileage, but it wasn't over. So I think they're looking at like potentially bringing and it's only, I think he said it was like 35 grand for an engine rebuild. So, if they were to introduce one more engine rebuild, it's probably not the end of the world to go reduce the minimum Ks a little bit, because it sounds like there's been a few cars now that have had engine failures. I think Jack LeBrock last year had one at Sydney.
There've been a couple, but you could do that. Or what you could do is just have a set of circumstances where if, as an example, the engine gets to a certain temperature, and you can prove data that they're allowed to send it back and they can do a pull down and just check.
Yeah, which is what they've tried and they said no.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they could bring in a few things like that. If it's had a big rev, if it had so many over revs or it's hit a certain RPM, it's got to a certain temperature or the oil's got to a certain temperature, whatever it is.
I guess their argument is that's where they say though, like particularly an over rev, We get hammered now about like over revs. Do not, like on the ride day, I was practicing that as a focus point, which just, delay the downshift a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's where supercars would go, well, you can physically delay your downshift and not over rev. And the reason we're keeping they do that as a cost capping thing to try and minimize the engine, bills. So they're going to say, well, why would we start to, if you have like a high over rev, why should we allow you to do it? Because the idea of it is you don't over rev and we reduce the cost. But the overheating one as well, I guess, is the same. It can be a human flaw, same as an over rev. So maybe they should introduce it and allow the teams to pull them apart, because it's not a good look when an engine dumps its oil and catches on fire. It's not a good look anyway, and it fucks the track for half the race.
It's throwing shit out the exhaust too, so it definitely went in a good way. But yeah, what is it? 5,000 k's or is it?
I think it's 7,500 k's.
Oh right, yeah, okay. So they could probably bring it back a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
What do we got? Teams and drivers stuff. Anything worth there, mate? You had the
No, that was just really based on last podcast. I'd left that in there because we had a couple rivalries in there that we wanted to touch on, but nothing really to go with it. It was just, I guess, Anton versus Reynolds last week we mentioned as one to watch, but it was pretty tricky because it looked like Reynolds qualified reasonably well, but then races, I honestly think there had to have been something wrong with that car, because he looked quick, and then just the deg was horrific. But Anton did a great job in the races. So he came through, and I think he's in the top 10 of the championship you read out before. So it's hard. I think we're going to see that unfold this year as we expected. They're close. Brody versus Davo. I think Davo was ahead through practice, but Brody did Brody things and got up in that. We'll have to check in with Tom and see how he's feeling versus
George v. Tom. I think George is winning that one at the moment.
Yeah. Would he definitely lean, mate? That was cool to see.
I tell you, there's a few people in pit lane that looked lean. Like, geez, they all got Weight Watchers sponsorship or some shit. What's going on? Because I saw about 4 people on camera. I'm like, they've dropped like fucking 10 kilos or something over Christmas or something. I'm like,
it's wild.
What the hell is going on? Is everyone on a bloody new man shake or something? What's happening?
Yeah, what have they got? I think
I need some is why I'm asking.
Got to be careful, because there is the one word floating around a lot lately that everyone's hooked on, but I don't know. The diet thing.
Right.
Yeah. Whether that, I'm not saying. I mean, fuck. Right. But no, I don't want to discredit anyone, because to lose that much weight is not.
Oh, I'm not saying it's bad. Like, people look great. I just noticed a lot of people. I was like, holy shit, there's some people that look good.
Yeah. Is it up your alley? Are they barbs?
No,
he's a married man now.
No good for me. But I can appreciate hard work when I see it, Scott.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was it. I think, unbelievable weekend. I think that we were lucky on Saturday to see Cam lose the lead and have to get it back, because that made for an unbelievable race. But they were just too fast all weekend. And Grand Prix last year, Rebel was strong, but I think it doesn't have the deg, but it's still similar characteristics to Sydney. So I still think we could see those guys quite fast.
Fast flowing corners. I think I'm just excited for now what's been set from a driving standards point of view. I think if I was anyone rolling out for the GP, I'd be like, gloves are off, let's fucking go.
Yeah, bloody oath.
So I think it'd be good, especially like if they're ever going to want an amazing race, it's on the world stage, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They put on a world-class race in Sydney, so hats off to everyone.
I think it's four races, so that's the cool thing with the Grand Prix. It is for points, but if you make a mistake or you do a dive bomb, doesn't pay off, the points are still 300 points for the weekend, but it's divided by 4 races now. So it's not as big a penalty if you make a fuck up, and
promotes having to go. It's a real sprint round. You know,
it is.
They're back to being a support category essentially.
Yeah.
So it's the sort of shit we go through every weekend, where you just like short races, but a few of them.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, it'll be exciting. So I think Sydney was awesome. Bring on the GP, I say, mate.
Yeah, bloody oath. In our chat here, Rod Walsh asked, he actually mentioned that Brody changed engine from Saturday to Sunday, which I didn't realise, and he's asked, how many do they have? I believe it's 1 spare across 2 cars. Is that right?
Yeah, it was 2. Yeah, 2 I thought it was 2 an entry, so 1 and a spare, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. And what about cost of the engine? Do you know how much? So Flynn Johnson has asked. This is a question above my pay grade. This is one for like a team manager or something.
Yeah, we can find out. I mean,
I did ask an engine rebuild, and I think it's around 35 grand an engine now, which I believe it used to be like 70 or 80. So they're a lot cheaper to rebuild.
I would have thought an engine would have been between 80 to 100, like if you just to buy one.
Yeah.
I would have thought. But we can speak to some people and we can get back to you when we find out the info. But I would have
It's probably hard to value one of those things though, isn't it? Because of the R&D that goes into developing and making them a supercar engine, like actually, You know what I mean? Like you got to think about all the parity, the AVL, like an actual cost. It's like saying how much an F1 car costs. You can buy them.
I mean, yeah,
But there's the development
that's
that goes
kind of
into
been written off by Supercars, I'd assume, all those costs anyway. But yeah, if you're a team and you go to KRE or whoever your engine builder is, you go, hey, I need an engine, I'm sure there's a price point somewhere. So
Yeah.
we'll find out for you, mate.
That is it, though. That's all we got for the debrief. If you have any thoughts about what we've mentioned here, chuck it in the comments section. Love to hear from you guys, Ford and Chev fans. Let us know your thoughts. Obviously, we talked about some of the key points I think that, would be factors to consider. And my opinion is I don't think it would be a bad thing to have the one engine supplier. And one thing I would like to say as well is I found out like Kenny Mack, so he owns Kenny Mack Race Engines, and he doesn't get looked after by Supercars at all for a weekend. Like we talk Hall of Famers, and drivers are always in that conversation. But I don't know how many engines that he's built would have won Supercar races and championships. And I don't believe he can even get a car park pass for a paddock. Now there's one of the guys like has been around forever and can't get a car park pass, which I just think I'm like, honestly, that guy's got to be Hall of Fame territory, really. Like as an engine builder in the category, he's won some races and some championships.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me though.
Yeah, it's definitely,
It's getting harder and harder to get tickets.
Well, it's like Rick Kelly. He's won the championship and he's got to go buy a ticket to attend the Sandown 500. Like, how is it that guy not on a just
lifetime? You
go sit at the AFL and you sit up where the families are of the players and you look around. Every player that's ever played a game in the AFL has a season pass.
Yeah.
They get given like it's one. It's not. So someone like Kenny, I'm like, a shout out to him because. I found that out. I was like, fuck, that is wild. Like, you can't even get into a track.
Give him a car park, for God's sake.
But there's got to be a few of those that you're just like, how are they not getting looked after? Like, how many people have been in the lane for so many years?
Yeah. Well,
like, even honourable mechanics, right? Robbie Starr, 1991 was Brocky's mechanic, Scafey's race engineer. And if he stopped working in the sport, it's just got to be people you go, fuck that guy. Like,
yeah, I think
that long in the sport.
If you spend 10 seasons in the sport, you should get a.
Oh, I just scrape in there. Do I get a free pass?
You should. Well, you should.
Dude, I don't even get a co-driver pass. They actually don't have. I've got to ring up. Like, I've got to fucking get passes to get in the track. Like, even for Bathurst, the team's got to just use like a team allocator pass. They got rid of co-driver passes, for God's sake. So it's like.
Well, yeah, they're
it's ridiculous.
2 times a year, mate. It's like.
All right.
There
we go.
Thanks for tuning in.
I got to take a P15S and then we're going to cut this and go into the next podcast.
The Voice Memos pod. Copy.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night.